So if we had had something like this for Val and I to watch, we probably would not have, gone off on this because it has been a lot of work.
Because we were going to take the house itself, add on to the back of it, and then build an ADU. So when we were originally doing the budget for permits, we were asking our builder, so how much are permits? Around $7,000 for our permits. We put that into our budget. And what we found out through this process is that's not even close. Not even close.
It's going to be a beautiful house once we're all said and done with it, but we've blown the budget. That's very important to stay within. When you're building a house, you want to make sure you stay within those limits and not spend too much.
We haven't even gotten to the building part to blow our budget even further.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is
that's
just
a sad point.
That's just to get started.
Yeah. Good morning, Colorado investors. Got a really exciting podcast today where we're going to do a deep dive into a story on a house in the Berkeley Highlands, talking about how they were able to acquire this property off market through networking, and then the redevelopment they were going through here on fixing up the house, and then building an ADU and making it a house where they can age in place with flexibility with family and also some additional income streams. So as with most real estate development stories, there's a couple of curveballs in here, which we will dive into. But this series is part of our Fire on Fire episodes with the Denver Real Estate Investing Podcast. I've got Jamin Cook co-host with me today. Good morning, Jamin.
Morning, and welcome to another episode of Fire on Fire, where we have Paul and Valerie DeSalvo. All of us are involved in Fire on Fire, and we started it after Paul got injured and I got injured, and Val, Paul's wife, actually is retired medically because of an injury. So we started Fire on Fire to help other firefighters learn how to invest, whether that's in real estate or anything else. But our job is really just to give free education to the firefighter group. And today we've got Paul and Val on to talk about their current project.
Thanks, Jamin. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I've been doing some updates on our social media, on Instagram, on Fire on Fire. And I've been doing some regular updates on how the project's been going and just giving some generalities of what's going on, the problems we've been going through, and how long it has taken to get to where we're at right now. And at this point right now, today, we still don't have the permits we need to keep it going. But we did start demo just a couple days ago. So that's some progress. I updated everybody on the social media. This is going to be a very interesting podcast. If we had had this, something like this for Val and I to watch and know what we were getting into, we probably would not have, gone off on this because it has been a lot of work. And Valerie has really been on the weeds on this. So she's going to, share the majority of the story on this. But it has been a project. It's been stressful. And this is kind of just a podcast to help people understand what exactly it takes to do something like this, especially in the Denver area. So I'm going to let Val kind of tell the story because it's an interesting one, and the networking side of it, that she grew up with this person who we bought this house from. And so we'll kick it off from there, Val.
Okay. So when I was growing up, I lived next door to this house with my father, and I got to know her family really well, as well as her. And when I moved back in with my mom, we kind of lost touch. And after my father died, we decided to remodel his house. And I just went over to her house one day because I wanted to let her know, if there was noise, what we were doing, if there was any problems, to give us a call. And I just peeked inside of her house, and it was a disaster. And I just felt like this person needed some help. And so we started talking, and we talked every day. I went over there every day and helped her with little things around our house that I could, and got to know her really well again. And she had a reverse mortgage on her house, and we were talking about that, and she had no money to do anything. And so one day we were doing the remodel on our house, and in the basement, there was water coming up from the bottom of the basement. And we're wondering, where the heck is this coming from? So after Paul's scrambling to get a shop vac, I'm running over to the next door neighbor going, what is going on? Can we go look in your basement? Lo and behold, you open up the door to the basement and water is 4 feet up the wall.
Like literally
flooded.
4 feet in the basement.
Flooded. She had no idea. Mind you, this lady is at the time 90 years old.
It'd been running probably for about 3 days and
Had to have been.
didn't even know it.
And so that's kind of where we started helping her even more. We ended up helping her get her furnace fixed, got her a new water heater, just trying to help her out. So she was originally just going to let her house go back to the bank on the reverse mortgage. And I started talking to her and I said, well, if you want to stay in your house, we'll buy your house from you. You can stay in the house as long as you want. And then we'll just go from there. And it took her a little while to figure it out, but she finally trusted us enough and said, fine, let's sell to you guys. And so that's how we acquired the house, was just through knowing her from a long time ago and then just getting to know her during the remodel of my father's house and seeing the condition she was living in and just wanting to help. So.
And I want to interject here because I mean, the way you two like found this deal is I'd say the most common way for like the average investor to go find like a good, off market, off MLS deal. There's investors out there that spend $10,000, $20,000 a month on postcards and Facebook ads to go out there, and they are the professional investors with a team and, a multiple 6-figure budget a year just for acquisitions. That works great, but that's a big ramp up period. The most common way I've seen over the years for people to go out through the deals is exactly what you've done. It is networking. It's knowing the neighbors, maybe writing some handwritten letters to neighbors once in a while, but just good old fashioned networking is where I've seen a lot of deal flow come. And here's something that's always so important for real estate investors to understand is like, ultimately you guys structured a win-win situation, right? I mean, this poor old woman, and you told me a lot more stuff going on that's just like, sad where she was with the house and other stuff going on in there. And what she had a house that was flooded and you said no heat for a while and you guys fixed the furnace. Family that wasn't necessarily taking care of her. And then she was like, hey, screw it. Let the bank take it back, which is not great and no money in her pocket. And then you were able to come with a better solution and actually have her walk away with some money and kind of set her up for the next phase of her life. And that's how like everyone out there looking for deals, network with your neighbors and look for that win-win situation.
Yeah.
So you guys acquired this, and this is right next door to another rental you own, right?
Yes.
Okay. So talk about, you get this property, and can you kind of give a high level for like numbers on like what you acquired at or kind of like the price you got the property at?
So we acquired the property basically for a little under land value, as if there were no structure.
Wow. Okay. And you were saying this lot, I mean, it's what you said, 6,350 square foot. So a little bit bigger than your average lot, but you said most importantly, it was just epic views of the mountains of downtown Denver.
It's a corner lot.
It's a corner lot, like not just a great location, in the neighborhood, but just some amazing views. And you said, I think there's a church, an orphanage across the street where they'll never build on.
Correct.
So like there's a lot of really great things about this property.
Absolutely.
All right. So you guys acquired this. And then what did you go through from like a business plan option? Because you had a lot of options you could do here.
Well, we had a lot of talking to do.
Yeah, we really, when she decided she was going to move out, because we were going to let her stay there, indefinitely. And she was 90, 91, 90 at the point.
She was 91 when she moved out.
And yeah, so we're like, let's let her stay here. We have no idea what we're going to do with this thing. We acquired it for a decent price and we're okay holding on to it. It's paid off. And so we didn't really think about it and just were like, okay, she's good. We've got heat for her. She's got water running. Even though the house is a complete disaster, she's happy there and we're happy having her there. So, 3 months later, it was, she was ready to get out. And so that's where we were like, it's time to start thinking about what we're going to do, what the highest and best use of this property is going to be for us. And then we were like, well, you know what? Maybe this will be our home. Maybe this is something we'll move into and age in place and maybe have family join us and have some rentals to offset the expense of the mortgage. And so we just started, after we went through the rehab option, the scrape option, the duplex option, everything you can think of.
Slow down. Talk more through that, because you had a lot of options on this plot.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of opportunity. We just didn't know what we could build and what was allowed there. So we had to look at the zoning, see what was allowed. And we wanted to come up, obviously, with the highest and best use. And, where we just sell this thing and maybe make a little bit of money off of it. And then, we talked more and we're like, this will be a beautiful place to live. So that's where we really started digging in on now looking at contractors and architects. But yeah, the options of the other ones just weren't working out for us and weren't making sense. And so we went through that whole process of starting to look for architects and developers and, all that stuff.
I like that they ran through all the options to figure out what was going to work best, number one, for you guys, as well as, that return of investment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we started, I'm at the very minimum, just fixing the house and renting it out, trying to see what that looked like.
Right.
And then fixing the house and building an ADU. What does that look like? Because in Denver, it has to be your primary residence in order to build an ADU. So we're looking at the options of that. Well, we have to move into it. We don't want to move into the house like it is. So obviously you have to remodel it to build an ADU. What does that look like? How much can you get for an ADU? What's a 1-bedroom ADU? What's a 2-bedroom ADU? So we were looking at all the options. And since we knew the neighborhood, it was a little bit easier for us because we didn't have to research and find what things were selling for and how popular the neighborhood was. So we knew it was a great place. And by the time we got done with all the options, we were like, this could be a great house for us to age in place. If we do have to sell it at some point, it's a great house for somebody else to age in place, which seems to be the new building trend.
And backing up a little bit, we had also, I had some health issues. And so we were like, you know what, this is a huge project. We can't really deal with this right now. So let's put it on the market and sell it. We can't, I was going through some issues with my neck. I had an infection. So I had some serious health issues going on. So we're like, let's get it under contract and sell it. So we did, had it under contract. Guy went in there to look at it and he was like, this is too expensive. He backed out. So that made us really think again, like, oh God, what are we going to do? And that's really what led us down the path of building the house for ourselves.
But a house in that condition, was a cash only deal that could have happened on that? No loans?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. So come the fact that, hey, you want to go in there, remodel the place, make it nice, age in place. What was the rough budget and what was like the rough plan on what you're going to update there?
Well, our initial budget,
Yes.
we were looking at trying to stay under $1 million because we were going to take the house itself because it's a 2-story 1902 Victorian. We're going to keep the house, add on to the back of it, and then build an ADU. So we were thinking under $1 million to start with. Once you start getting more information from contractors and getting bids, then it went up to, okay, it's at least $1 million. We don't want to spend any more than 1.2. Then you start getting more bids from contractors that are around the 1.5 to 1.6 price. And you start doing your numbers, and even as a primary residence, it doesn't make sense anymore. So we dove in deep to find a contractor that would agree to a build price of 1.2.
How many contractors did you guys go through?
We went out to bid with 6 different contractors, which involves, so we originally, I got a software program to design a house. And so I used that program and I designed the whole addition, the ADU in the garage. And I was able to give that design with the square footage and everything to all these builders so they at least could get an idea of what we wanted. Same for architects. Architects will ask you, well, do you have a plan? What do you want? And that depends on what their price is going to be. So we said, this is what we want. And it was much easier for them to come back and give us an actual price of what it was going to cost us for architectural fees.
Yeah. Doing a lot of that work that you did obviously saved us a lot of time because the builders, the architects were able to give us a more accurate quote of where we needed to be. We knew where we needed to be. And by the drawings of the type of house we wanted, we could always back away from that and work backwards out of it. And So when we started talking to these architects and developers, it was coming in higher and higher. So we talked, like she said, we talked to 6 different people, and the bids were, kind of in that area and above. So
you start off kind of back of the napkin, about $1 million project cost. And then where did it end up at from like the planning stage? 1 point.
So just for the builder to do his portion is 1.2.
Okay. And other costs on top of there, what was the rough numbers?
The architect is about 27,000, and that's with having a plan in place.
Okay.
And then, of course, when you have an architect, you're going to need a structural engineer. You also need a civil engineer. You need a
shoring
mechanical engineer and plumbing engineer. If you are adding on to the back of a house and digging a hole, you need a shoring engineer plan. So by the time we got done with all of these fees, we're upwards of, what is that, about 20 additional on top of the architect?
yeah, there's soils tests, there's surveys, there's builder risk insurance. So
you're in the 1.3, 1.4 range with the other costs on there. All right. So you bought this property all cash, right?
Correct.
So you had no loan on the existing structure and the land, but of course, doing major improvements like this, that's a lot of money to self-fund. So what did you do from like a financing standpoint? Because this is where, so many people, even if they just want to add an ADU to their house or remodel it, a lot of times people get stuck in the financing, right? They don't have all the money to float it themselves. And then financing becomes very tough for construction projects like this.
yeah, and as we know, so financing with interest rates where they're at right now has become very difficult. So we did a lot of shopping. Valerie really dug in on this one and did a spreadsheet. We must have talked to...
It is a great spreadsheet, by the way.
Yes,
Seeing this, there's a dozen columns of different lenders and points breakdown, like A+ on that.
Yeah, did a lot of really good work on it, so we could really analyze what the best loan was going to be for us and what the costs were going to be, because we hadn't even gotten into all of these, but when we were looking at the loan, we still didn't know about a lot of these expenses that were coming up. So we did really well, and Val can talk a little bit more about the lender we went with and kind of the difference between the rates and the costs with this specific lender that we went through.
So we tried normal conventional financing due to the shape that the original house was in, which was non-inhabitable. Obviously, those rates go up. So we were looking at First Bank. We were looking at private lenders. We were looking for DCSR loans. We were looking at everything, trying to find something that would work for us. And the associated costs with those, whether it be a private money loan or if it was through First Bank, and they were high and ridiculous. I believe the least amount of interest rate we were quoted was 7.5%. The most was upwards of over 10%. And so we were sitting there one day and Paul started Googling and it just said, oh, BMO construction loans. I'm like, BMO? Who's BMO? And so I called them and we got a hold of this guy, and it's a Canadian-based bank that is now everywhere.
Yeah, it's Bank of Montreal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just know the commercials.
And now,
I see that all the time.
And
they're
it's
gobbling up
everywhere
banks.
in the U.S. now. They are infiltrating into the U.S. and they are competing with these banks, and they want your business. So their interest rates were phenomenal. So we locked in at a 6.5, which was at least a half a point below anybody else that we could find. And by the time we got through our loan process, which was another ordeal, we ended up getting a rate of 5.75 on a construction loan in Denver, which converts to a 30-year mortgage at the same interest rate with no additional closing, where a lot of banks had 2 closings, where you pay all your money up front, your origination fees, and then when it's time to turn it into a mortgage, you do it all over again and pay the additional fees. So it was phenomenal. It was just a fluke that we found them. And I do have to say, the guy that we worked with at BMO was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing financing because, I mean, construction loans are not the cheapest loans out there.
No.
Their terms are tougher. I mean, it's riskier, right? Fewer banks do it. But that goes to show, like, you shop around. You always talk to multiple contractors, talk to multiple lenders, especially in, like, more unique situations like this. And you keep shopping around, and hey, you found the bank where, are they below market rates? Yeah, because that's what they're probably investing in, like, advertising dollars to gain marketing share, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you got that at construction loan and then it converts to permanent financing is nuts to me.
It's crazy.
And I imagine that saves you a lot of fees and also a lot of interest rate risk as well when you go from construction to permanent.
Absolutely.
And so how much of the for construction, this kind of like standard like draw process that they had there for you'd have to you could draw at so many times for funding the construction? Or
Yes.
do they have any big headaches there or any like big wins there?
We've only done one draw so far for our builder, but it's a very detailed process for the builder to put in why they want the money that they want. And once they get that right on their forms, then the draw process took 3 days for them to get their money. So super simple.
Yeah. And a little bit to add to back up on that. Had we known, when you do your loan, you only have a certain period of time before you got to finish that project. What is it? They give us
It's a year.
A year. So, we closed on this loan when interest rates had dropped down pretty low. And I was like, okay, it's time to lock in. We were thinking, our builder was pretty positive that we were going to have our permits done by September. Latest November, no way into December.
This is 2024.
Yes. And so, we're like, oh, we'll be fine. Let's close on this and wrap it up and let's start our clock. And now we're sitting here going, okay, if these permits take much longer, we're going to run out of time. And so, for anybody out there, thinking about doing this, is that something to think about? Is like when you lock down your loan, you have a time frame there. So you better have your house in order with your permits and know when you're going to get those or have them already and have this approved of whatever you're building because you got a clock going and you don't want to run past that clock because I assume there'll be more fees to extend that if we have to. So we're hoping that we get the permit here soon and we can start moving forward because we are on the clock.
So caveat to that, a lot of the banks will give you an extension. They will charge you for that extension. BMO, I found out after calling them when I found out how long this was taking, since we closed on our loan, there is a 6-month extension that you can do as long as you provide the details of the delay. And so there's no additional costs for that extension. Yeah.
So just copy and paste some emails over there and be like, here's
Just
why.
make it a good email. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of talk about here. So if anyone out there, investor, someone else in the firefighter community wants to get the BMO contact, because I know you had a really good loan officer there.
Yes.
Hey, there's BMO's a huge corporation or a huge bank now. Hey, and I've noticed over the years, I've talked to some bankers or some loan officers, and some literally don't know the programs or investor loans that bank has, but the loan officer, the next cubicle over knows it and gets the loan done. So you guys have a great contact there. If people want it, reach out to Paul and Val. They're happy to share it, make the intro, because I've been a part of a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And sometimes you guys have a great banker. Now, moving over, talk about the timeline on here. You had the plan, and this is typical for development, right? Hey, here's the plan. And then you get on the developer timeline, which is usually not the same thing as a plan. And then, Denver County has also, from everything I've heard, has gotten harder to work with and getting the permits and the deal done.
They have their own plan.
Yeah. Yeah. This is where I start drinking. I'll let Val, and I think she's probably
You better than a drinking game, huh?
Yeah, right. I think Val will start drinking more than I will. But she's really been in the weeds on this. And we also have an expediter that's been working on this. And for everybody out there that doesn't know what that is that's somebody that's very experienced in the permitting world and understands the permitting world. It can be specific to a certain area or all over the geographical area that you're in. And they're supposed to be able to, get in there and be able to move things a little bit faster. And with Denver, it has been an extreme challenge for her. Val decided to jump in and assist her and has done a remarkable job with that and has stayed on top of things. And I'm going to let her, kind of describe her angst and all of her stress of what she's been dealing with Denver, and has done a great job. Even though we don't have all the permits yet, we probably would be much further behind if she wasn't where she was, and we're digging in on some stuff. So
is an expediter, is that a normal part of the process, an extra charge? Is it an option? Is it suggested?
You have to pay for them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when you talk about an expediter in Denver, you would think that would help you with your permitting time. And so far, we've been 8 months from the time they received our original permit to build, our plans, and we're still going. So to plan your timeline with Denver without an expediter, guess at least 8 months to a year.
So you're 8 months into it now. When you started this project, how long did you think it would take? What did you budget for?
We were originally told that with an expediter, 4 to 6 months. No longer than that, should be even sooner.
Yeah. By the contractor, or is that?
By the contractor who has used this expediter in the past.
And their experience getting permits prior to this, that's where they were sitting at.
And everything. I mean, I know a lot of developers, and it's very common for people to have an expediter, right? That's their full-time job.
Yes.
They know the planning department. A lot of times they used to work there. They've done dozens or hundreds of deals with them. Like, it's like they usually have like the insider's game.
Right.
Correct.
So 4 to 6 months, and you're going on 8 months and counting.
Correct.
Yeah, and that timeline would have been much longer. Like I said, if Val had not gotten involved, a lot of the stuff had been missed, and emails had been sent out and they had been missed. And I'm not dogging on anybody, in the permitting office, the expediter, but there's so much information. Obviously, they're working on multiple permits for everybody else too, and sometimes that gets missed. And I'm glad Val was there, because we would probably be looking at another probably easily 3 to 4 months of time, because she caught it and was able to jump in and intervene and get to the permitting office. And then we ran into some circumstances where the permitter that's working on our construction permits misses stuff or made a mistake or thought they had sent stuff that they had already sent, and we had corrected it, and then they resent it, and she caught it. And so, they don't care about their mistakes. They're just like, well, send it back to me, and it's going to be a while before I get to it.
You said it was like a 6-week kind of like communication turnaround.
So once they come back to you with comments, so if you send them your architectural plan and it's in the sewer use and drainage permit office, which there's several offices that it goes to and several different people working on your permits. Once it goes to that office, they receive it and they put a timeline on it. They say, okay, well, I need to answer by this time. And you can follow it on Denver e-permits. And so you see that date. And then underneath it in bold letters, it says, these are not exact times that you can look at our timelines to see if we're running behind. Well, Denver currently right now in that specific department is running behind 2 to 4 weeks. So if they say, well, I'll look at it in 3 weeks. That's my deadline. I'll get back to you. It could be 5 to 6 weeks before you get a response. And they send you their response and say, well, we need this corrected. We need this added. Once you get that, then you have to go back to either your civil engineer, structural engineer, your architect, or maybe all three to get those changed. So then it takes the time for them to do it. Usually a 2-week turnaround is what they quote you. And then you upload it into Denver's e-permit system. And if you have not uploaded that information by that time, they say, oh, we haven't received anything, not approved. Okay, we'll look at that in 3 weeks and we'll put that date down.
Oh, it's just automatic not approval.
Correct. If you do not have it back to them, it's not approved. I don't have to look at this for another 3 weeks.
Seems like a one-way street there.
It's absolutely a one-way street. So no matter how fast you are on your side getting things back to them, You just need to make sure you get it back to them before that deadline that they have to review it.
Otherwise, you go back
It'll be
to
at
the end
least
of the line.
another
then.
month. Add another month onto your timeline.
And so all this is going, you're making your interest payments on your loan, right? And
Correct.
your holding costs and everything else, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
the bank doesn't care.
Nope.
Nope.
Neither does the permit office. Yeah, they don't care how much money you're spending, and that's we're not developers, and but a lot of guys in our neighborhood. There's a lot of houses going up by developers. They understand the system. We always see a lot get scraped, in our neighborhood, and then they're building within a couple of months. We're like, how did that happen?
Because you're in that office all the time. That's
Yeah,
relationships.
They understand
right?
it. They have their plans that have been approved. They understand them. Pretty much cookie cutter. They build around there. So
Donuts and coffee.
yeah. And for people, and we've seen some on the other side of that, we've also talked to people that are building houses up there that, just take, years,
Mhm.
and they're still in progress. And I'm assume that they're running into the same problems we have been and just haven't been able to figure it out.
So there's a big difference between professional developers
100%.
and DIY homeowners, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But be involved. It's an involved process is what it sounds like. You got to advocate for yourself as well.
Oh, and you
Yeah.
have to monitor and
Yeah.
be on top of all the subs and the contracts and the agreements and the deadlines. Like
Mhm.
you guys are better than the average investor out there for your attention to detail, Val. Like,
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people
Yeah.
get bit in the butt.
Question everything because they're not always right. They said, like I said, they sent back revisions that they had already sent back to us. And we're like, we fixed these. What's going on? And the guy was like, yeah, oops, sorry, my mistake. Talk to you in 2
The whole
weeks.
time.
So, it doesn't matter if it's their mistake. It's like, you deal with it. I don't care. Deal with my mistake. And so they don't care, how much money you're spending, how much this is costing you. I'm not, again, those people are, working in a system that's very stressed, and, there's a lot of stuff coming in with minimal people working. So, I don't want to put all the blame on them. I know it's circumstances. I don't think they're bad people. It's
They're
just,
individual, a cog of the machine, right?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
And they're human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're human. Right. So
when we were originally doing the budget for permits, we were asking our builder, so how much are permits? And we guesstimated around $7,000 for our permits. And so we put that into our budget. And what we found out through this process is that's not even close. Not even close.
Where's the current estimate at?
So there's a zoning permit fee. There's an SUDP fee, the sewer use and drainage permit fee. What we did not understand is even if you're using the same sewer system for the main house and the ADU, they will charge you twice for the sewer use and drainage permit. Whether one sewer, two sewer, they don't care.
Per ADU?
Yes. So if you were doing a basement that you could lock off as an additional unit, and you had an ADU and the main house, that would be 3 separate SUDP permits. So right now, before paying the actual building permit, the final SUDP permits, and something that we just found out about recently was the affordable housing fee. Right now, just with the zoning, the forestry, you have to give them $210 just to look at the plan that you submit. So right now we're at about $3,000 before we get to any of the final permits. So we're thinking, oh, okay, we got $4,000 left in our budget. One SUDP permit for 2025, which has gone up over $400 from 2024, is $6,320. So since we have
one permit's almost your total budget.
yes.
Yeah.
So since we have 2 structures, we have our main house and then we have an ADU, they're charging us 2 of those. So that's $12,600 for just the SUDP permit. And then the actual building permit itself will probably be around $5,000. Calculated that according to Denver's website. And then we go into this affordable housing fee that we had.
Can I time out here yet?
You
Because
can have
this
any
is
time out.
this
yes.
is where I really start
There's
drinking.
a lot of information.
So I want to jump back here. She's talking about the sewer tie-in. This is something that, I got really interested in ADUs 6, 7 years, like a lot of people did. And I mean, I want to make sure I understand here because you're talking about, hey, houses have, one sewer pipe from the house to the main sewer hookup in the street or the alley.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have an ADU, you're not building a new pipe to the sewer main. You're just building a tie-in to the main house to there, right?
Correct.
So even though you're doing a tie-in, you're spending $6-7 grand permit per tie-in to your current sewer, right?
And that's having an existing sewer tap. Yes. If you did not have an existing sewer at the structure, like if you're building new construction, their sewer taps are an amazingly high fee for a sewer tap. So I'm not quite sure what the fee is that we're paying for the sewer, and just tying into the additional sewer being the same amount. But that's what Denver is requiring.
Okay. Well, those are the rules, and all we can do is play by them, right?
That's correct.
All right, so thank you. Now, going on to the Denver Affordable Housing Fee, this was a shocker. I think it's about a month ago. You and I were talking, Paul, and I asked questions like, hold on, I'm going to give you the phone to Val here because you filled me in. And I've been aware of Denver's initiative, hey, they want to go out there and make housing more affordable, right? That is something that we sorely need and a great mission out there. That's the end goal. We need it in Denver and, for the most part, all across Colorado. And I had talked to a lot of bigger developers. Hey, they're doing, big multi-unit developments, 50 units, 100 units, 200 units. I know they had a lot of it changed their budget, changed their planning. A lot of developers stopped building because of the affordable housing fees. I did not realize until we were talking that it impacted smaller, quote unquote, smaller developers, homeowners like you guys. And this caught me by surprise. I know it caught you guys by surprise since you have to write the check.
That was a big one.
Yeah. So talk to us about what the program is and then the fees, because this was the biggest shocker to me of everything.
So in Denver, they passed this affordable housing fund in 2022. And they put together a program that says, okay, this year, this is how much we're going to charge you per square foot if you are not building an affordable housing unit. And then it will go up every year exponentially from 2022. And so we looked at it and we're like, okay, so for 2024, it's $6.17 a square foot for your structure.
This is new square footage.
Yes.
Yes.
New.
Okay.
New. So if you have an existing house, it does not count. But whatever you add onto it, if it's over 400 square feet, you will be paying an affordable housing fee. And basically, it's a fee in lieu of building affordable housing. If you're building an ADU on your property, that is considered affordable housing. So you do not have to pay the fee for that. But on the main house, since it's not an affordable housing unit, you will pay a fee in lieu of not building that. And so we are adding over 1,600 square feet of new construction.
And this is just the main house, not the ADU.
Yes, we're adding on an addition of over 1,600 square feet. So according to their calculations, it's going to be over $20,000.
And this was not in your original budget, right?
Absolutely not. I had no idea it existed.
So I remember when we talked about, I think there were some 4-letter words that were being used with the budget planning there at the time.
Oh yeah, there still is. A very colorful language.
Yeah. You got a matrix pulled up here
I do.
on a sheet of paper in front of you, Paul.
Yeah,
Can you read out some of those numbers?
Yeah, so basically, it started in 2022, like Val said, and it started at $250 a square foot for anything over 1,600 square feet. And then the next year in 2023, it went to $433. 2024, it went to $6.17. And for 2025, it goes to $8 per
And these
square
are all
foot.
just, this is a predetermined fee schedule?
Correct. It's
So
on their website.
regardless of anything else that happens, this is just the fee schedule.
Yes, and it's on their website, so everybody can view it.
And this is Denver only, not statewide.
Yeah, this is Denver County, right?
Okay.
It's
Yes.
Denver affordable housing. Mhm.
And so everyone's aware, Denver County, Denver City, they're the same thing. So if you say Denver,
Correct.
Denver is Denver, anyone in Denver is going through this.
Yes.
And you had said, I know you're behind timeline, and I think if you don't get the permit ready is it June you said, or
July
July?
1, the fees go up for
Okay.
the affordable housing.
So if you get done before then, you'll be at that.
$6.17.
Okay, 6 infant. If you don't, you're in the $8
$8
range.
range.
Okay.
Okay.
Significant.
So the clock's ticking more now, huh?
Yeah. This is why it's so important to work out a very conservative budget and, kind of build in some cushions in there, which we did, but we didn't build in this much cushion.
So you've blown your contingency.
Oh, yeah. Gone out of the water. And so that's where you thought we were being extremely conservative and careful. We
Yeah, and the
looked at-
voucher guys, you guys are, you're conservative planners, you're good underwriters. Like, you're not.
absolutely. We're experienced.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't built much. I mean, we've done a duplex and what else have we built? An ADU.
But
we
this is
had-
not your first rodeo.
No. So we had, those were no issues back then when we built those. They actually went very smoothly and everything that we expected was there. I mean, there was a few things that were a little bit higher, but nothing like it is today that we did not expect, did not understand, did not know about. And a lot of people didn't know about it. So that kind of, was painful.
And no
Say the
overtime to
least.
cover it.
All right. So right now you're estimating about a $20,000 affordable housing fee.
Correct.
But if the timeline does not go to what you're thinking, it may jump up quite a bit from $6 and change to $8 a square foot.
Several thousand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not the only thing. I mean, we didn't even talk about the asbestos mitigation issue we had, which became a major spill. And we were thinking maybe a couple $1,000s that we budgeted for, since it was already gutted. We're like, well, they're not going to find any asbestos in here. It's gutted already. So we were fine. And we had to have the asbestos test before you start any construction. Denver has to come in and test for asbestos. Well, they found, in their words, a major spill, which I had a really hard time with. A lot of the stuff they don't need to even test for. They can just consider it a major spill. They found it in
What
the
defines a
ductwork.
major spill?
Anything over, I brought in the measurements and they have specifics on it. I don't remember what the exact, how they picoliters or whatever it is. I got the EnviroSpec thing here. It's just, they talk about if it's over a certain amount, that they find, which they found on the ductwork, which was down in the crawl space, and somebody at some point, because this house was built in 1902, usually you don't have to worry about asbestos, unless the house was built in starting in the 1950s through the 1960s.
Yeah.
Is when they really started using asbestos. So we thought we were fine, and then they came back and said, you have a major spill, closed down the whole operation, had to hire some companies to go in to get some estimates. And they were coming in around the $30,000 range to have it completely mitigated. And that's where we were just like, what is happening right now? This is crazy. We found a company that would do it for us for much less. And it took them at least a week to mitigate everything in there. So yeah, just more surprises and something that you really have to be ready for.
If no one's ever seen an asbestos mitigation, like go watch a YouTube video.
Yes.
It's amazing. It looks like a hazmat scene.
Yeah.
The way they set it
They've
up.
got to
and-
build up negative pressure in
Yeah.
the house. And that means this house had a lot of holes in it, and sealing that house up was an issue, and making sure that they had a good negative pressure to get all of the asbestos out while they were cleaning it. So
we're end of January while we record this. If you guys could know what you know now, if you go back in time, what would you tell Paul and Val from 2 years ago?
Sell it.
Sell and don't do this project, huh?
yeah, it's been, a learning, experience, trial and error for sure. And, had we known what we know now, we would have definitely not gone into this, because it just would have been too overwhelming, too much to deal with, and much more work than we expected.
Because a lot of it's just the headache and bandwidth you guys are dealing with, right? That's like the
Yeah.
biggest pain, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful house once we're all said and done with it. But costs have we've blown the budget. That's very important to stay within when you're building a house. You want to make sure you stay within those limits and not spend
Mind
too
you,
much.
we haven't even gotten to the building part to blow our budget even further.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is
that's
just
a sad point.
That's just to get started.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all you're trying to do
Yeah,
is
it's
get
just getting
started.
I mean, there's so much more stuff that has gone on, and obviously we can't dive into all of that right now, and just kind of give you an overview of what you're going to deal with when you dive into something like this.
So what I'm understanding, if people want to pick your brains or get referrals, they should pay you in whiskey and vodka to help you cope and plan, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all joking aside, though, where are you at today and what does the next 6 months look like?
So we've received a couple of permits. We've received our shoring permit, which allows them to do the demo that's required. So they did demo the garages in the back of the house. So we do have that finished. So it did allow them to do that. We're still waiting on our SUDP permit for the ADU. They require a covenant agreement if you're using one sewer line, which states that you will never separate the lot into two pieces and sell the main house separate from the ADU. Since
Really?
there's only one sewer line.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can amend that later on, is what I understand.
So
right?
you would have to go back in if you wanted to separate those.
Okay.
You'd have to add
Because I've seen
sewer
properties
line.
where they have split the parcels.
Correct.
And it's been one sewer line, but that's okay. That's interesting. All right.
So Denver is no longer allowing that. So now they're putting this covenant agreement into effect. So in order to get that back to your SUDP permit advisor, you have to get the agreement from them. You have to go get it notarized. You have to record it with the city of Denver, and then you have to send it back to him. So we're in the process of waiting for that recording from Denver.
Just to record it.
Just to record it so we can upload it for the SUDP permit reviewer to give us the go ahead. And
So you're waiting for
hopefully-
this department to record it so you can upload it and tell the other department to
Right.
go ahead.
Right. And
Okay.
so once we get that, we believe we will finally be able to get the building permit and pay for all of our fees at that time.
So fast forwarding, once this is built, can we do a property walk?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, we should for sure.
Yeah.
And a
Okay.
follow-up podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. I want to document this because I talk to you guys a lot, and also for like day-to-day details. I think you're posting on Instagram, Paul.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. What's the handle?
Fire and Fire Investing.
Okay, Fire on Fire Investing
Yep.
for a lot more like day-to-day videos, post.
Yes. I'll be
Um,
updating regular, big milestones through the project. When we reach a milestone, I go out, record it, talk about it. So yeah, I'll keep track of it, and then hopefully when it's done, we'll do a good property walk on it and watch us move into it, which would be another nightmare.
So I got two detailed follow-up questions on here. I recall from what I've known that we've talked about in the past that ADUs, since you're building the ADU, that's not part of the affordable housing fee, right?
Correct.
Are there certain things you have to show for building cost or rent cost, or just the fact that it's a new house or a new dwelling unit? Does that exclude it from the affordable housing fee?
It is an exception to the affordable housing. You still have to give Denver all of your plans. And on their website, it does explain everything that they need to show that as an exception.
But they're not asking, hey, you're gonna rent this out long term? Are you gonna medium term? Because most people I know who build ADUs in neighborhoods like Berkeley Highlands, they're it's upscale neighborhood,
Yes.
very nice ADUs. And a lot of times they are gonna they keep a few months a year for kids coming back or parents coming back, and the other 9 months it's Airbnb and medium term rentals,
Correct.
which does not help with affordable housing.
Correct.
But they don't. Denver doesn't care. Hey, ADU is an ADU, and therefore it's affordable housing.
Correct.
Okay. So the second biggest gripe I hear about from developers besides the Denver permit office is Excel. You're in a deal too with some Excel issues with the developer. I'm in some as well. Have you guys dealt with Excel yet? Because I've heard horror stories from developers. I've also heard horror stories from people building ADUs with Excel. I don't want to put bad juju on you guys, but is Excel in the picture yet? Or are they in the picture?
Just started with them.
Okay.
We had to get a temporary pole put up for electricity
Oh,
and for our builder. And apparently that's another builder permit. They call Excel, and they have to apply for a permit to get that temporary pole. Then they can put the pole up. Once they get the pole up and connected, then a Denver inspector has to come out and inspect it to make sure that it's done correctly. Once they get the blessing,
so it's a fast and efficient process.
they
is what you're saying.
can move forward
Well-
with an electricity pole. Temporary.
But in this circumstance, I would have to say that was probably one of the more smoother permits that we had to get.
Oh, great.
That pole went up pretty quickly after they applied for it, right? I mean, because they did the demolition. And so there's a pole up.
So was there an existing pole on the lot before you demoed it? So why do you need a temporary one?
They need it for their own electricity.
Yeah.
They can't tap
Run their
into
equipment.
the meter that's on the house itself because all that has been demoed.
Can you run an extension cord to the house you're on next door?
Yes.
We could, yes. I don't know
Okay.
how our tenant would feel about that, but yes, we could.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember this when I lived years ago outside Denver, but one of our friends, we just ran an extension cord for like 3 months, like whatever, like,
Mhm.
buy us beer and pizza on the weekends, right?
Right.
Okay. So luckily for you, Excel has not been a headache yet in this
So far,
factor.
no. We do
Okay.
have some telephone and cable wires along with the electricity wires that are on our side of the alley that are kind of hanging low that we're really going to need to deal with. And I've heard that's a nightmare getting them to fix those.
Okay. So Jamin, I know you do a lot of land deals as a broker. Do you have any other like tips or stories or anything that they were saying that's been similarities or affected or, other stories that you've dealt with your clients?
I don't think I've heard Excel's been an issue. I have another client that was converting it was a commercial structure that they converted into a residential. So it was a church and a daycare, and they converted into a residential in a neighborhood. And they're dealing with Excel and trying to navigate that process. So I've heard that's been an issue. Obviously, you guys have had better luck, but Excel has been the biggest issue as far as getting things approved. And
Because I think most of your land deals are outside of Denver, right?
yeah, and I wouldn't say I've done a ton of them, but it's Colorado, it's Denver Metro, right?
Yeah.
People want to get out of city sometimes, and so I don't know that I've ever had any other issues besides dealing with Excel and trying to figure that stuff out. Raw land wise,
Yeah.
I've never had to deal with it, or none of my clients have ever had to deal with it. Usually, it's already improved.
One
Okay.
land deal can teach you
Yep,
an amazing amount about land.
septic well and pulling
Yes.
power.
Septic, we just got done with one too. And man, there's the stuff you have to know about to do a deal like that. We've done deals before, but nothing to the extent like we've done just recently. There's a lot of details.
Yeah, doing your due diligence and advocating for yourself is, it's kind of the lesson, right? Being involved. You can't just hand everything off, it sounds like, and you got to be involved and pay attention.
Yep.
So I have checked off all the questions I had on what we talked about and things I have until podcast part 2 that we'll do. And hopefully it's just podcast part 2, no podcast part 3 as we finish out this project. Any other final thoughts or trials and tribulations at this point in the journey so far?
I would say that from what I said at the beginning was if we had been able to listen to a podcast like we're talking about right now, we probably would not have gone into what we went into, like going, whoa, wait a second, that's way too much. Look what's going on with these guys. We're going to run into the same thing. So for anybody out there wanting to go in, we're open books. You guys can call us, contact us anytime, and to talk about this. If you're interested in doing some type of development or any kind of rehab, just know what your costs are going to be and make sure that you underwrite that very carefully and very conservatively. Being with Chris and watching a lot of these developers and how they do their underwriting, I've learned a lot from that. Unfortunately, it was a little bit too late. Walking into this, I had not learned, we started this almost a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's been a ride, and I want to make that, cut that learning curve in half for people. And just by talking to people and networking, you can really cut your learning curve in half and save a lot of money or a lot of heartache.
And I guess the thing that I would add to that is if you are going to do this and you do have your underwriting controlled and you know what to put in there, that you need to have somebody on top of it. You need to have the time to be there, to be present, especially during the permitting process, to look at dates, deadlines, to get things that you need back from a civil engineer back to the planning reviewer on time, on their deadlines, just to have somebody present, all times.
Yeah.
Just to have that time. And if you don't have that time, definitely hire somebody that does, that has your best interests at heart.
Well, Paul, Val, thank you guys for like coming out here, being an open book. We appreciate it. I learned a few things. I'm sure audience did as well. Jamin, great job co-hosting, man.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, this is fabulous. So, guys, thank you so much. We'll be looking forward to a part 2. And definitely check out Fire on Fire Investing on Instagram for more day-to-day type updates. Be looking at a feature for a podcast and a property walk or 2 in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. And last thing, I know, Paul, so we're recording this on a Tuesday, or Paul and Jim recording this on Tuesday. Yesterday on Monday, we had, I think, our 3rd or 4th, Fire and Fire Mastermind at the Union Hall in Inverness done. Talk a little bit about there for a lot of the first responders listening to this. What's some of the education stuff you guys are doing and a lot of the in-person stuff you're doing right now, for 2025?
Yeah, so it's been going great. We started this PAM series for people that
Portfolio Analysis Mastermind.
Portfolio Analysis Mastermind. And we've been really focused on the firefighters version of it and bringing in people that currently own properties. And we've been going through the analysis with them with the software and looking at their return on equity. And the majority of people, I think everyone basically there was rethinking what they were doing. They were, I was in the same position as where from here do I go? How do I keep growing and expanding my portfolio? What do I do with this money and how do I make every dollar work for me?
Where do I get money from?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Jamin, you can, speak to this too. He's been talking to a lot of people. I've been talking to a lot of people in the department. And when they come to these classes, they find a lot of value. And everyone is learning something. It's sparking. You can see people start thinking about like, oh, wow, man, I can really make my money work harder for me in different areas or do something else with my property that will help me make some more money off of it. Strategies that we can use. So it has been very helpful. It's been great. Chris has been teaching the classes. He's an excellent teacher. And people really, can understand him very easily. And he explains things very basically, and people really get it. There's people that are coming into this class with absolutely no knowledge and walk out of there going, I want to start investing in properties. Yeah. And Jamin, I know you've had the same.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're finding is that firefighters, we're pretty financially savvy, but we can always be better. I think the other side of it is that we always look at the cash flow that comes in every month, right? And that's how we evaluate our properties. And one thing I've learned and what I've seen with the people that have attended the class is that they're re-looking at the cash flow every month, and they're now transitioning into looking at that return of equity. And everybody who bought 10 years ago, and they're sitting on maybe $300,000 in equity, that money's not working for you. And so people are starting to realize, I could do better with my money.
Yeah. There's
and
options.
Make it work harder for me.
There's a lot of options people just aren't aware of.
Yeah.
And, bringing that to light has been very fulfilling. Helping people move forward with their real estate investing and understand how to invest is extremely fulfilling. That's what Fire and Fire is all about.
Yeah.
Is helping these people, helping these firefighters invest better and be smarter with their money.
And you can see the wheels turning in everybody's head in the classes. So it's been productive.
Really they're great classes. So I appreciate you guys putting them on. If you're out there, if you're a firefighter, reach out to Paul and Jim and plug in his classes. If you're not a firefighter, but also investing in Denver, we got very similar classes and masterminds. Reach out to any of us here at the table. We're happy to get you plugged in, share information, and help you go out there and do your next deal. Jamin, thank you. Val, thank you. Paul, thank you. This has been a phenomenal podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Jules.